8 p.m. 3 ZSU-23 trucks guard the hostages. Hostages to be used as human shields for a sign of danger, or the first hornet to appear over the search radar. What's more, each truck holds enough toilet paper to supply the enemy for a month. You need a surgical sniper. You call the gunfighter. At dusk, in the fog. After the first shell hits, 3 trucks burn. Then his dreams and TP up in smoke.
In this video, I'll be taking you through how to cycle targets that you've already stored, recording them quickly and then acting upon that. The second fastest way to do this is via target points. In operational mode, simply have nav TGT lit up by pressing it, and then if you press a target point number followed by uncage, it will hop your Shkval there. Then press the next number, uncage, etc. Daylink targets take a little bit more, as you typically first need to press any of the second row buttons, then the target type, cycling through until you find the one you want, unless you only had one of that target type stored, and then pressing the target type buttons until you find the one you really wanted, and then pressing deal ingress and then only uncage. The fastest method by far, what I call quick cycling, is by using both a data link target combined with a target point. In previous videos I advise you not to do this, or at least not to use them combined, as it makes it confusing. However, there are limited situations where that is really called for and really speeds it up, because if you first bring up a stored data link, use DL ingress, and then you bring up a stored target point, from then on, uncaging no longer behaves as normal at all, but purely hops between the target point and the stored data link. So if you store both of these from a perfect hover, where you maintain the angles with the respective targets that you've stored, you can then use uncaged Shkval to hop between 2 targets with practically perfect aim, which in limited situations really helps, especially with firing cannon rounds before the targets escape. So in this situation, I'm going to mark one of the 3 gas trucks as a target point. Then I'm going to store one of the other gas trucks as a data link target. The idea being that I'll lock up a third target without storing it. I will fire on this third target first, tap uncage once, fire on the second target, tap uncage once, fire on the third target. When pressing uncage, it will hop to the next target you hadn't uncaged to. So if the last thing it uncaged to was the data link target, the next tap for uncage will hop to the target point, and vice versa. Generally, I like to keep it that the cannon moves left to right or right to left and doesn't zigzag, although it moves quite rapidly, so this may not be an issue for you. So the order in which you store the targets doesn't matter, in which their position also doesn't matter. All that matters is to make sure that the last thing that it uncages to will be the next thing that you wish the gun to train on when you tap uncage. Another thing to note about this technique is when you tap lock, it'll fire the laser for 8 seconds if it attains a lock. If you switch targets during this time, that laser of ranging is still firing, which means it'll get the right ranging for the next thing you uncage to. If you finish firing on the next target and tap uncage, by the time it goes to the next target, it will get an accurate ranging on that as well, and you don't have to relock. If it can't get a lock, like in this case with all this fog, the Shkval simply cannot get a lock, then it'll only fire for 3 seconds, which in this situation was enough. I'm dealing with light targets and I'm up close. Generally, I'd recommend for most light targets like a BTR, maybe use a full high rate of fire 10 round burst on the target before you move on to the next target. I've set the cannon up that I'm within 2 kilometers, high rate of fire, in this case high X, because I want splash damage to be hitting the trucks and they don't need armor piercing rounds, and I've set it so I can use a long rate of fire in case I wanted to fire that long, although in this case I will not. I put my Shkval on the last target that I have not stored, lock, immediately pull the trigger to fire gun rounds on it, press uncage as soon as I'm done. As soon as the Shkval is on the next target, I press the trigger again. As soon as I've pumped off enough rounds onto it, uncage, next target, fire. I could also interrupt the cycle by, as soon as I uncage onto a new target, I press lock again to re-range if the laser was not still firing. However, with that technique, if you do it too soon, it stops the Shkval slewing to the next target midway, and it can also disrupt the order in which it uncages between the daily link target and the target point. One thing to note about this technique: outside of having a perfect hover, it does not require you to have any skill. A little bit of reflexes to know when to tap uncaged Shkval, and you don't even need to release the gun trigger. If you don't have sensitive targets in between that you don't want to be spraying with bullets, you can keep holding in the gun trigger all the way as you uncage to the next target. All it takes is having the necessary prep time in advance that you can do so calmly. Now, this technique of combining daily link targets with target points amongst your targets is less useful, for example, with Vikhrs. If you set your Vikhrs to manual mode, you can fire up 2 Vikhrs on the same laser before you have to reset it or wait for the laser to stop firing. So you can fire a Vikhrs, wait 6 or more seconds, like I have displayed in my second video on sniping, and then shoot a second Vikhrs, and once the first explosion happens of the first target being hit, you manually use the slew hat to guide it over to the second target. You can also use the helmet mounted sight, you just have to be really careful about how you do it. Now, cycling targets with uncaging a Shkval generally does not work with Vikhrs unless they're in a very small angle. The Shkval moves simply too quickly, the Vikhrs tries to reacquire the wildly moving laser and then spirals out of control and eventually misses. So for most purposes, using this rapid cycling does not assist you with Vikhrs, other than acquiring you the next target you need to be launching on, but it won't help you mid-flight without making the Vikhrs spiral off in most situations. Another context where using a mixture of daily link targets as well as target point can be beneficial is if you're going in for a rocket run with range disparate targets. By that I mean you mark one as a target point, you mark one as a daily link, you make sure which is which, you maybe mark a third target. You fly in, you range it. Once you've launched rockets on the first target, you simply tap uncage while the laser is still firing, and your rocket pipper will now automatically know where it's going to hit given the range of the new target. It might help in a furious rocket run in that you don't have to use the helmet mounted sight and rearrange things on the fly. All you need to do is lock once to fire, and then you keep tapping uncage to get the new rangings, and you have your rocket pipper adjust. So all you need to do is concentrate on your flight path so that your rockets are on target with accurate rangings all the way through. This is Vikhrs, and I hope this has helped you see how the Shark can take out targets very quickly with pinpoint precision. And next up I'll be delving in more into the Vikhrs moving map system, getting the most out of it, and rounding off your knowledge of the target points and daily link targets before moving on to how you can convey this knowledge to airframes not in your daily link. Cheers.